The transport ship Wanderer sat quietly in its docking bay at Station Kepler 7. It was not a large ship, and it was not fancy. It carried supplies and fixed things when they broke. The crew was small, just 12 people, and most of them were engineers or mechanics. They liked working with their hands and solving problems. Commander Daniel Hayes stood in the cargo bay, checking inventory on his data pad. He was 53 years old with gray hair and rough hands from years of repair work. Before joining the space program, he had fixed cars and machinery back on Earth. He liked space well enough, but he really just liked fixing things. Katie Morrison worked beside him, counting spare parts. She was 32, with bright green eyes and red hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She could take apart almost any machine and put it back together better than before. Right now, she was organizing power cells and muttering about how the supply depot always sent the wrong sizes. The station around them was busy. Station Kepler 7 was a trading hub where dozens of alien species came to buy, sell, and resupply. The humans had been coming here for about 6 months now, and most of the aliens ignored them. Humans were new to space, barely 100 years out from their home planet. The other species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. To them, humans were like children, interesting but not important. Daniel did not mind being ignored. It made his job easier. He could dock, load supplies, and leave without getting tangled in galactic politics. That was fine by him. Katie looked up from her work and nudged Daniel's arm. "Hey, we've got a visitor." Daniel turned and saw an alien standing at the entrance to the cargo bay. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with dark red skin covered in scales. Its eyes were yellow and sat on the sides of its head like a predator. Sharp claws tipped each finger, and its mouth had too many teeth. Daniel recognized the species immediately. It was a Krath, one of the warrior races that most species feared. But this Krath was young. Its scales were still bright, not scarred, and it moved with an uncertain shuffle. It was probably a teenager, if Krath had teenagers. In its clawed hands, it held something carefully, like the object was precious. Daniel set down his data pad and walked over slowly. He kept his movements calm and open. The young Krath watched him approach with wide eyes. "Hello," Daniel said. "Can we help you?" The Krath made a clicking sound, then seemed frustrated. It held out the object in its hands. Daniel took it gently and examined it. It was a translation device, the kind that all galactic citizens carried so they could understand each other. But this one was broken. The crystal core inside was cracked, and the display was dark and dead. Katie came over and looked at the device. She whistled low. "This is old. Like, really old. I've only seen these in museums." The young Krath made more clicking sounds, clearly trying to communicate but unable to without the translator. It pointed at the device, then at Daniel, then made a gesture like putting things together. "You want us to fix it?" Daniel asked. The Krath nodded eagerly, understanding the tone if not the words. Katie turned the device over in her hands. "I don't know if we can. The parts for these haven't been made in like 30 years, and that crystal matrix is specialized. We'd have to fabricate something from scratch." "Can we try?" Daniel asked. Katie looked at the young Krath, who was watching them with desperate hope in its yellow eyes. She sighed. "Yeah, we can try." The Krath seemed to understand that they were going to help. It pressed a clawed hand to its chest and bowed its head, a gesture that seemed to mean thank you or respect. "Come back in a few days," Daniel said, speaking slowly and using hand gestures. "We will try to fix this." The Krath nodded again and left, moving quickly like it was afraid they might change their minds. Katie carried the broken translator to her workbench and set it down under a bright light. Daniel joined her and they both stared at it. "Why do you think the kid came to us?" Katie asked. There are dozens of repair shops on this station, shops run by species that actually know what they're doing. Daniel shrugged. Maybe they all said no. Why would they say no? Look at this thing, Katie. It's ancient. The parts don't exist anymore. Any reasonable shop would tell the kid to just buy a new one. Katie picked up a small tool and carefully began opening the device. But we're not reasonable? Daniel smiled. We're human. We don't like throwing things away if we can fix them. The next 3 days were challenging. The crystal matrix that powered the translator was cracked in 7 places. Katie tried to repair it with bonding agents, but the crystal was too fragile. It shattered completely on the 2nd day, and she cursed for 5 minutes straight. I need to make a new crystal, she finally said. But we don't have the right materials. Daniel thought for a moment. What about the synthetic diamonds we use for cutting tools? Could we modify the molecular structure? Katie's eyes lit up. That might work. The lattice is similar. I'd need to introduce some impurities to change the refractive properties, but yeah, that could work. They spent the next day in the fabrication lab, using equipment meant for making spare parts to instead create a synthetic crystal. It took 12 attempts before they got one that had the right properties. Katie installed it carefully, then reconnected the circuits. Nothing happened. The power distribution is wrong, Katie said, frustrated. The new crystal has different conductivity than the original. I need to rewire the whole thing. She worked through the night, her desk covered in tiny components and wiring diagrams. Daniel brought her coffee and food, and eventually fell asleep in a chair nearby. When he woke up at dawn, Katie was testing the device. It lit up with a soft blue glow. Does it work? Daniel asked, his voice rough from sleep. Katie grinned. It works, and I think I actually improved the power efficiency. This thing should last twice as long on a charge now. On the 3rd day, right when they had promised, the young Krath returned. It moved nervously into the cargo bay, clearly expecting disappointment. Daniel held out the translator, now working and glowing softly. The Krath froze, staring at it like it could not believe what it was seeing. Slowly, it reached out and took the device. Its claws trembled slightly. The Krath activated the translator and held it up. You fixed it, it said, and this time Daniel could understand through his own translator. You actually fixed it. How? We made new parts, Katie said simply, and changed some things to make it work better. The young Krath touched the device to its forehead, a gesture that seemed deeply meaningful. I am called Zixthar. I went to 5 repair shops before I came here. All of them said the translator was too old, too broken. They said I should discard it and buy a new one. But this was my sire's translator. He carried it for 40 years before he died. I did not want to throw it away. Daniel felt a tightness in his chest. We're glad we could fix it for you. Zixthar looked at them both with something like wonder. My podmother told me stories about humans. She said you fix things that others abandon. I did not believe her. I thought surely all species would help if they could, but she was right. Only humans tried. We just did what needed doing, Katie said, uncomfortable with the praise. Zixthar pressed his hand to his chest again, more firmly this time. My pod will know of this. Humans fix broken things. This is important. This means something to the Krath. Before Daniel could ask what he meant, Zixthar bowed deeply and left, clutching the translator like it was made of gold. Katie watched him go and shook her head. That was intense. Yeah, Daniel agreed, but we helped. That's what matters. Neither of them realized that they had just changed everything. In 3 days, they had done something simple and good. They had taken something broken and made it whole. They had not asked for payment or praise. They had just helped because they could. And somewhere in the vast network of Krath communication, Zixthar was telling his podmother what had happened. She would tell her crew. They would tell others. The story would spread like fire through dry grass, growing and changing as it went. Humans fix broken things. Such a simple idea. Such a powerful truth. The galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. 3 weeks after fixing Zixthar's translator, the Wanderer was traveling through deep space on a routine supply run. The stars looked the same as always, countless points of light against the black. Daniel sat in the captain's chair, reading reports and trying not to fall asleep. Space travel was mostly boring, which was fine by him. The communications officer, a young man named Chris Blake, suddenly sat up straight at his station. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's on a priority channel." Daniel frowned. Priority channels were for emergencies or military operations. The Wanderer was neither. "Who's sending it?" Chris checked his screen. "It's a Krath warship. They're requesting assistance with damaged systems." The bridge went quiet. Katie, who had been checking engine readouts, looked up sharply. "A Krath warship? Are you sure they're asking for help and not demanding we stop?" "The message says they are requesting, not ordering," Chris confirmed. "They're being polite, really polite, actually." Daniel felt confused. The Krath were warriors, proud and strong. Their military was famous across dozens of sectors. Why would they need help from a small human transport ship? "Send a response," Daniel said. "Tell them we'll meet them at the coordinates they specify." Captain Linda Shaw came onto the bridge a few minutes later. She was the actual captain of the Wanderer, a stern woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Daniel reported to her, and she made the final decisions. "Are we really doing this?" she asked Daniel quietly. "Meeting a Krath warship in deep space?" "They asked for help," Daniel said simply. Linda studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but we go in carefully. Keep shields ready and scan for other ships." 2 days later, they found the Krath warship waiting at the coordinates. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer. Its hull was dark red, almost black, and covered with weapon ports. The name Talon of Dawn was marked in Krath symbols along the side. As they approached, Katie whistled quietly. "That's a heavy cruiser. It could probably take out a small fleet by itself." "So why does it need us?" Chris wondered aloud. They got their answer when they docked. A Krath warrior met them at the airlock, and even through the viewing port they could see he was huge. His scales were scarred from old battles, and one of his eyes had a milky film over it. He wore armor decorated with symbols that probably meant he was important. When the airlock opened, the Krath bowed his head. "I am Commander Karshek of the Talon of Dawn. You honor us with your presence." Daniel blinked in surprise. He had expected demands or orders, not courtesy. "I'm Commander Daniel Hayes. This is Captain Linda Shaw. You said you needed help?" Karshek straightened, and something in his expression looked almost vulnerable. "The cub Zixthar is of my bloodline, my daughter's son. He told me what you did for him, how you repaired his sire's translator when others refused. This act has meaning to the Krath. It speaks of character." "We just fixed a broken translator," Katie said, confused. "You took what others discarded and made it whole," Karshek corrected. "You honored the memory of a warrior you never knew by preserving what he carried. This is not a small thing to us." He gestured for them to follow him into the ship. "Come. I will show you why we asked for you." The interior of the Talon of Dawn was impressive, but worn. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. But as they walked, Daniel noticed things. Panels that did not quite fit right. Wiring exposed in places, repair patches over repair patches. The ship was functional, but barely. Karshek took them to engineering, and Katie's expression grew more troubled with every step. The engine room was a mess of temporary fixes and improvised solutions. Systems that should have been replaced years ago were held together with determination and hope. "How long has it been like this?" Katie asked quietly. 6 years for some systems," Karshek admitted. "Longer for others. We repair what we can, but many parts are difficult to obtain. The Galactic Council does not trade with the Krath easily. They fear us. They do not wish to see our ships strengthened." Daniel felt anger rising in his chest. "So they've been letting you operate damaged ships? That's not just cruel, it's dangerous." "We manage," Karshek said, but there was pain in his voice. "We are warriors. We endure." Katie was already moving through the engine room, her engineer's eye cataloging problems. "Your plasma injectors are misaligned. Your cooling system is running at 60% capacity. And this power coupling here, it's one bad surge away from complete failure. If that goes, you'd lose main power in the middle of a fight." "We know," Karshek said quietly. "We have known for 2 years, but what can we do? No one will help us." "We will," Daniel said firmly. Linda shot him a look but did not disagree. She turned to Karshek. "We'll need access to your full systems, and we'll need your engineering crew to work with us. This is going to take time." Karshek's good eye seemed to shine with moisture. He pressed his clawed hand to his chest in that gesture of deep respect. "My ship and my crew are yours to command. We will assist in any way we can." The work took 2 weeks. The human crew of 12 worked alongside 60 Krath engineers, and at first it was awkward. The Krath were huge and strong, but they were used to brute force solutions. The humans were small but clever, finding ways to make systems work better with less effort. Katie found herself teaching Krath engineers about efficiency and elegant design. "You don't need to reinforce this coupling," she explained to a massive warrior named Gresh. "If you route the power through this secondary path instead, you reduce the load by 40%. See? No reinforcement needed." Gresh stared at the schematic she had drawn, his yellow eyes wide. "We never thought to do it that way. We assumed more strength was always better." "Sometimes it is," Katie agreed, "but sometimes it's about working smarter, not harder." Daniel spent his time in the life support sections, which were in terrible shape. The Krath had been breathing recycled air that was barely adequate for years. He redesigned the filtration system using parts they fabricated on the spot, and when he finished, the air in the ship was cleaner than it had been in a decade. A young Krath engineer named Tresh watched him work with fascination. "You made this from spare parts? Parts that were meant for other purposes?" "That's what engineers do," Daniel said with a smile. "We make do with what we have and find creative solutions." "Humans are strange," Tresh said thoughtfully, "but good strange." On the 10th day, they finished repairing the main power couplings. When Katie powered up the engines, they hummed smoothly for the first time in 6 years. The entire engineering crew, Krath and human alike, stopped to listen to that beautiful sound. Gresh put a huge hand on Katie's shoulder, carefully gentle. "I have worked on this ship for 12 years. I have never heard the engines sound like this. So smooth, so strong." Katie grinned up at him. "That's what proper maintenance sounds like." By the 14th day, they had completed all major repairs. The Talon of Dawn was not just functional anymore. It was performing better than it had when it was first built. The combination of Krath durability and human innovation had created something impressive. Karshek stood on his bridge, running his claws over controls that responded instantly and smoothly. Around him, his crew worked at stations that no longer flickered or failed. The air was clean. The engines were strong. His ship felt alive again. He turned to Captain Linda Shaw, who stood beside him with Daniel and Katie. I do not have words sufficient to express my gratitude. You have given my ship back its pride. You have given my crew back their confidence. We just did what needed doing, Linda said, echoing what seemed to be becoming a human saying. Karshek shook his head slowly. No, you did more than that. The Galactic Council has known of our struggles for years. They could have helped. They chose not to, because they fear what the Krath might do if we were strong. But you, humans who barely know us, you helped without hesitation, without fear, without asking for anything in return. He stepped closer and made that formal gesture, hand to chest. I pledge the Talon of Dawn to stand with human vessels when called. This is not a treaty negotiated by politicians. This is a bond made between warriors who respect each other. My ship will answer if you have need. This I swear on the bones of my ancestors. Linda looked surprised and a bit uncomfortable. Commander Karshek, we appreciate the gesture, but we're just a repair ship. We don't need military protection. Perhaps not today, Karshek said. But bonds are not made for convenience. They are made because they are right. You honored my blood by helping young Zixthar. You honored my crew by repairing our ship when others refused. The Krath do not forget such things. We do not abandon those who show us kindness. He looked at each of them in turn. More than this, I will spread word among the Krath defense clans. Humans see what is broken and they fix it. They help those who need it. This is the mark of a worthy people, a worthy pack. After the Wanderer departed from the Talon of Dawn, the crew gathered in the common room. They were tired but satisfied, the kind of tired that came from good work, well done. Chris brought up a concern that had been bothering him. Do you think we're going to get in trouble for this? The Galactic Council doesn't exactly love the Krath. If they find out we've been helping them? Linda sighed. Probably, but I'm not going to apologize for helping people who needed it. If the Council has a problem with that, they can take it up with me. Katie leaned back in her chair. You know what's funny? We fixed a translator for a kid and repaired a warship. We didn't think about politics or consequences. We just helped. And now we've got a Krath commander pledging loyalty like we're best friends. Is that bad? Daniel asked. I don't think so, Katie said slowly. I think maybe it's exactly what the galaxy needs. People helping each other because it's right, not because there's a treaty or a trade agreement, just because it needs doing. She had no idea how right she was. At that moment, on 7 different Krath ships, warriors were hearing the story of the Talon of Dawn, how humans had helped when no one else would, how they had fixed what was broken without asking for payment or power. The story spread like wildfire through the Krath clans, and with it, a simple message. Humans fix broken things, and they fix them for free. In a galaxy built on transactions and treaties, this was revolutionary. And the revolution was just beginning. Ambassador Richard Cole had been dealing with galactic politics for 5 years, and he thought he had seen everything. Then he got the report about Krath warships pledging loyalty to human vessels, and he realized he had been wrong. He sat in his office on Earth's diplomatic station, reading the reports with growing concern. 5 Krath ships had now declared formal bonds with various human vessels. Not treaties, not trade agreements, personal bonds of loyalty, the kind the Krath usually only made with their own family groups. His assistant, a young man named Peter Grant, paced nervously across the office. Sir, this is a disaster. The Krath are considered dangerous by most of the galaxy. If we're seen as allied with them, it could destroy our reputation. We need to distance ourselves immediately. Richard did not answer right away. He was reading a report from Captain Linda Shaw about repairing the Talon of Dawn. The details were technical, but the conclusion was clear. The Krath ship had been operating in dangerous condition for years, and no one had helped them. Margaret Perry, his senior advisor, sat quietly in the corner. She was older than Richard, with white hair and eyes that saw too much. She had spent 30 years studying alien cultures, and she understood them better than almost anyone. Margaret, Richard said, what do you think is really happening here? Margaret looked up from her own data pad. I think we accidentally stumbled into something the galaxy has been missing for a long time. The Krath don't give loyalty easily. Their entire culture is built on bonds of mutual respect and obligation. For them to pledge loyalty to humans means we did something that resonated deeply with their values. We fixed their ships, Peter said dismissively. That's just basic maintenance. No, Margaret corrected gently. We helped them when everyone else refused. We saw them as people who needed assistance, not threats to be contained. To a species that values loyalty above everything, that matters more than any treaty. Richard closed his reports and looked at his two advisors. The Council is going to summon me, probably soon. They're going to want explanations. He was right. 2 days later, he received an official summons to appear before the Galactic Council to answer questions about unauthorized military alliances with Krath forces. The message was formal, but the tone was clear. Humanity was in trouble. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room that could hold representatives from hundreds of species. Richard stood in the center, surrounded by aliens of every shape and size imaginable. Some were humanoid. Others were so strange he could barely comprehend their form. All of them were watching him. The council speaker was named Velketh, a being made of crystalline structures that caught and refracted light. Its voice came through translation devices, cold and precise. Ambassador Cole, humanity has been observed forming unauthorized bonds with Krath military vessels. The Krath are a warrior species with a history of conflict. Explain your government's intentions in strengthening potential threats to galactic stability. Richard kept his voice calm and professional. With respect, Speaker, we have not sought any military alliances. Our vessels have been conducting standard operations. When we encountered damaged ships, we provided assistance. That is all. A different council member spoke up. This one called Sulvan from the Hexarch Coalition. Its body was like flowing water, constantly moving. You repaired Krath warships. You made them stronger. This is not neutral assistance. This is taking sides. We repaired ships that were damaged and asked for help, Richard said carefully. Those ships were crewed by living beings who deserved functional life support and safe navigation systems. Would the Council have preferred we let them drift in space with failing systems? The question created an uncomfortable silence. Several council members shifted or made sounds that might have been distress. The honest answer, Richard knew, was yes. The Council had been perfectly happy to let the Krath struggle with damaged ships because it kept them weak. The Krath are dangerous, another council member said, a being that looked like a giant insect. They must be contained. Contained by neglect? Richard asked. By letting their people suffer in broken ships. Is that what galactic civilization means? Velketh's crystalline structure flashed with colors that might have been anger. You overstep, Ambassador. The Council's policies regarding the Krath are based on centuries of experience. Humanity has been in space for barely 100 years. You do not understand the complexities involved. Perhaps we don't, Richard admitted. But we understand that when someone needs help, you help them. That's not complex. That's basic decency. The chamber erupted in noise, dozens of species trying to speak at once. Some seemed to agree with Richard, others were clearly angry. Velketh had to call for order 3 times before the chamber quieted. Just as the speaker was about to continue the interrogation, alarms sounded. A large group was requesting immediate entry to the council chamber. This was unusual. Sessions were scheduled, not interrupted. A council guard approached Velketh and communicated something in private. The speaker's crystalline body flickered rapidly, a sign of surprise or distress. A Krath delegation is requesting immediate audience. They claim it is a matter of honor. The chamber fell silent. The Krath rarely came to the council, and they never requested special sessions. Something important was happening. The massive doors opened, and 5 Krath warriors entered. They moved with the grace of predators, and every species in the room felt a primal fear response. These were apex hunters, beings who could kill without effort. But they walked carefully, respectfully, and at their head was Commander Karshek. Karshek approached the council platform with his head slightly bowed. A gesture of respect, but not submission. I speak for the Krath defense clans. The council questions why we offer loyalty to humans. I will answer, and the council will listen. Velketh seemed taken aback by the directness, but gestured for Karshek to continue. For 3 generations, Karshek began, his voice carrying easily through the massive chamber. We have been refused assistance. When our ships broke, we were told to manage ourselves. When we requested trade for critical supplies, we were denied. When we asked for help with failing life support systems, we were ignored. We accepted this because we understood. We are predators. We have sharp teeth and sharper claws. We frighten you. He paused, letting his words sink in. But our ships still broke down. Our children still needed education tools. Our systems still failed. And when we asked for help, you made it clear we were too dangerous to be worth helping. You kept us weak through neglect and called it peacekeeping. Karshek turned slowly, his scarred face looking at each section of the chamber. Then humans came. A young cub approached their ship with a broken translator. It was old, the parts did not exist anymore. Every repair shop on the station had told him to throw it away and buy a new one. But this translator had belonged to his dead father. The boy did not want to discard it. Richard listened, surprised. He had not heard this part of the story. The humans took the broken translator, Karshek continued. They made new parts from nothing. They worked for 3 days without payment or promise of reward. They fixed what others abandoned because they saw a child who needed help. This is character. This is worth. The chamber was completely silent now, every species listening. Later, my ship encountered the same humans. We asked for help with our damaged systems. We expected refusal. We expected to be told we were dangerous, that helping us would be unwise. Instead, they came. They worked alongside my crew for 2 weeks. They treated us not as monsters, but as people who needed assistance. They fixed what was broken without asking for power or payment or political favor. They just helped. Karshek's voice grew stronger. The Krath value loyalty above all things. We pledge loyalty to those who show they deserve it. Humans have shown character that this council has not. They see broken things and they fix them. They see people in need and they help. This is not manipulation. This is not strategy. This is who they are. He gestured toward Richard. The council fears these bonds. The council should instead ask itself why it allowed entire species to suffer rather than help them. Humans did not create loyalty through clever politics. They earned it through compassion. If the council fears this, then perhaps the council's order is built on something fragile and wrong. With that, Karshek and his warriors turned and left. The massive doors closed behind them, and the chamber remained silent for a long moment. Margaret Perry, watching from the observation gallery, smiled slightly. Peter Grant looked pale and worried. Richard stood in the center of the chamber, aware that something fundamental had just shifted. Finally, one of the oldest members of the council spoke. The Nethrani were energy beings, ancient and wise. They rarely involved themselves in debates, preferring to observe. But now, one of them addressed the chamber. I have lived for 12 centuries, the Nethrani said, its voice like wind chimes. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen the council grow from a handful of species to hundreds, and I have watched as we became comfortable in our power and cruel in our neglect. The Nethrani's form pulsed with soft light. The Krath speak truth. We have used fear as a tool of control. We have kept species weak by denying them help, and called it stability. The humans have reminded us of something we forgot. Civilization is not measured by the strength of its treaties, but by how it treats those who need help. Velketh's crystalline body flickered rapidly. Are you suggesting we reward humanity for ignoring council policy? I am suggesting, the Nethrani said calmly, that we learn from them. I propose we do not sanction humanity. Instead, I propose we create a new compact. A pledge of mutual aid, where species help each other not because of politics, but because it is right. Let humanity be a founding member of this compact, and let us see if we can remember what it means to be civilized. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Richard was questioned, argued with, and lectured. But slowly, opinion shifted. More species came forward with stories of being denied help, of struggling alone because they did not have political power or were considered inconvenient. The Krath story had opened a door, and through it poured decades of resentment and neglected need. In the end, the vote was overwhelming. The new compact was established, a pledge of mutual assistance that prioritized helping those in need over political considerations. Humanity was named as one of the founding members, along with the Krath and 15 other species who had been marginalized. Richard left the council chamber exhausted but satisfied. Margaret walked beside him, and she was smiling. "You know what just happened?" she asked. "We avoided sanctions," Richard guessed. "We changed the galaxy," Margaret corrected. "All because some engineers fixed a translator and repaired a ship. Small actions, Ambassador, but they ripple outward in ways we can't predict." Richard thought about Commander Daniel Hayes and Katie Morrison and all the other humans who had just helped because they could. They had not been trying to change the galaxy. They had just been trying to fix broken things. Sometimes, he realized, that was enough. Sometimes, that was everything. 6 months after the council session, Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Wanderer and tried to count the ships around them. He gave up at 30. There were too many, and more were arriving every day. The Wanderer was no longer alone. 3 other human repair ships had joined them, bringing the total human crew to about 50 people. But surrounding them was a fleet of alien vessels from 8 different species. None of them were human. All of them needed help. Katie Morrison stood beside Daniel, shaking her head in wonder. "How did this happen? We're just repair crews. Now we look like we're commanding a fleet." "We're not commanding anything," Daniel said. "They're just here because they need repairs, and they heard we actually do them." A young engineer named Olivia Chen approached with a datapad. She was 25, smart and quick, and she had joined the crew 3 months ago specifically to help with what everyone was calling the Repair Initiative. "Commander Hayes, we have a new arrival requesting permission to dock. They're Kreks." Daniel's expression became serious. "Are you sure they're Kreks?" "Their ship signature matches," Olivia confirmed. "And they're broadcasting on emergency medical channels. They say they have wounded." Katie looked worried. "The Kreks are even more dangerous than the Krath. They're in a cold war with the Council. If we help them, we're basically choosing sides." Daniel thought about this carefully. The Kreks were massive warriors, even larger than the Krath. They had a reputation for solving problems through violence. Most species avoided them completely. The Council had issued warnings about the Kreks multiple times, but they had wounded, and they were asking for help. "Permission granted," Daniel said. "Get Dr. Lisa Park to Medical Bay 2. Tell her to prepare for incoming patients." Katie started to protest, then stopped. She knew Daniel well enough to understand that once he made a decision based on helping someone, nothing would change his mind. "I'll notify the other ships in case this goes badly." The Kreks ship that docked was enormous, a warship covered in armor and weapons. It made the Talon of Dawn look small by comparison. When the airlock opened, the Kreks who entered had to duck to fit through the door built for humans. The Kreks commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, with gray-green skin and muscles that looked like they could bend steel. Scars covered his body, and his face had clearly been damaged in battle multiple times. When he spoke, his voice was deep enough to make the deck vibrate. "I am called Broken Stone. We have 20 wounded from a border skirmish. Our medical ship was destroyed. We heard humans help those who need it. Is this true?" Dr. Lisa Park stepped forward. She was tiny compared to Broken Stone, barely over 5 feet tall, and looked fragile next to the massive warrior. But her voice was steady and professional. "Bring your wounded to Medical Bay 2. My team will do everything we can." Broken Stone looked down at her with something that might have been surprise. "You will help? Even knowing we are Kreks? Even knowing the Council will disapprove?" "You have wounded," Lisa said simply. "That's all I need to know. Bring them." The wounded Kreks were carried in carefully by their comrades. 3 were critical, barely conscious and bleeding badly. The others had various injuries, from burns to broken bones to wounds that looked like they came from energy weapons. Lisa's medical team, 5 humans who were used to working with different alien biologies, got to work immediately. The problem was that Krek's biology was different from anything they had treated before. Their blood chemistry was strange, their healing processes unfamiliar. "We need to figure this out fast," Lisa said to her team. "Run every scan we have. Compare their biology to our database. Find what works." A Krek's medic, a smaller female named Quick Claw, stepped forward hesitantly. "I can help. I know Krek's medicine, but our equipment was destroyed. If you share what you know, I will share what I know." Lisa nodded immediately. "Deal. Let's save your people together." For 3 days, the medical bay became a place of intense collaboration. Lisa and her team worked alongside Quick Claw and 2 other Krek's medics. They learned that Krek's blood needed higher oxygen levels, that their bones would heal wrong if not set with specific pressure, that their pain responses were different from most species. Katie brought equipment from engineering to modify the medical tools for Krek's physiology. Daniel coordinated with the other human ships to share medical data. Olivia stayed up for 36 hours straight, running analysis after analysis to help the doctors understand Krek's healing. On the 2nd day, one of the critical patients started failing. His name was Stonebreaking, and he was young, barely an adult. His internal injuries were severe, and his body was shutting down. Lisa stood over him, her hands shaking with exhaustion, trying everything she could think of. "We're losing him," one of her nurses said quietly. Quick Claw made a sound of deep grief. "He is my clutch brother. We hatched from the same nest. If he dies, I will bear the shame of not saving him." Lisa looked at the monitors, at the young Kreks dying in front of her. She had been a doctor for 20 years, and she had lost patients before. It never got easier, but she was not ready to give up. "Katie," she called over the intercom, "I need you in medical right now." Katie arrived at a run. "What do you need?" "His cardiovascular system is failing," Lisa said quickly. "His hearts are giving out. Plural, hearts. He has 3 of them. I need something to boost circulation artificially until we can stabilize him." Katie looked at the Kreks, at the monitors showing his failing vital signs. "I can build a pump system. It won't be pretty, but it should work. Give me 2 hours. She built it in 90 minutes, using parts from life support systems and power regulators. It was a strange-looking device, cobbled together from components never meant to work together. But when they attached it to Stonebreaking, his vital signs started to improve. Over the next 12 hours, the artificial pump kept him alive while Lisa's team repaired his internal injuries. By dawn on the 3rd day, Stonebreaking was stable, breathing on his own, and his natural hearts were working again. Quick-Claw stood beside his bed, her massive hands gentle as she checked his condition. She turned to Lisa with tears running down her scarred face. "You saved him. I thought he was dead, but you saved him." "We all saved him," Lisa said, swaying with exhaustion. "Your knowledge, our tools, everyone working together." By the end of the third day, all 20 wounded Kreks were stable. 3 who had been critical were going to live. The others were healing well. The medical bay was crowded with Kreks warriors who came to see their saved comrades, and they looked at the small human medical team with something like reverence. Broken Stone stood in the medical bay, watching his warriors rest in beds designed for much smaller beings. The human staff had improvised, combining beds and reinforcing them to hold Krek's weight. They had adapted and solved problems and never once complained about the difficulty. He turned to Daniel, and his huge shoulders were shaking. It took Daniel a moment to realize the massive warrior was crying. "In 40 years of service," Broken Stone said, his deep voice rough with emotion, "I have watched the Council deny us medical assistance 6 times. 6 times I have lost warriors who could have been saved because we are considered enemies. We have begged for help and been turned away. We have offered payment and been refused. The galaxy told us we deserve to die because we are dangerous." He looked at Lisa, at her team, at the Kreks medics working beside them. "But you, humans who do not know us, who have no reason to risk Council anger, you saved them, all of them. Even Stonebreaking, who I thought was dead. You saved my warriors as if they were your own people." Broken Stone pressed both his massive fists to his chest, a Krek's gesture of ultimate respect. "The Kreks will remember this forever. Where humans stand, we will stand. If you call, we will answer. This I swear on the bones of my ancestors and the honor of my clan. We are bonded now, human and Kreks. Nothing will break this bond." Daniel felt overwhelmed. "We just did what doctors do. We helped the injured." "You did more than that," Broken Stone said. "You showed us we are not monsters, that we deserve help like any other living beings. You gave us back our dignity." After the Kreks ship departed, Daniel received an emergency communication from Ambassador Richard Cole. The diplomat looked tired and stressed. "Commander Hayes, the Council has issued an ultimatum. You are to cease all unauthorized assistance operations immediately and return to human space. They're threatening sanctions against Earth. They're calling what you're doing dangerous and destabilizing." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. "What did you tell them?" Richard smiled, and it was not his usual diplomatic smile. "I told them humanity doesn't abandon people who need help, because politics finds it inconvenient. I also pointed out that we now have loyalty pledges from the Krath, the Kreks, and about 20 other species who might have strong opinions about sanctions." "Sir, that could start a war," Daniel said carefully. "Or it could start something better," Richard replied. "The old system was built on fear and control. You're building something different, something based on helping each other. I think that's worth fighting for, don't you?" Daniel looked around the observation deck, at the ships gathering around them. Species who had been ignored, marginalized, or considered dangerous. All of them here because they heard that humans fix broken things. "Yes, sir," he said. "I think it's worth it." Katie came to stand beside him after the call ended. "You know this is crazy, right? We're repair crews. We're not supposed to be starting revolutions." "We're not starting anything," Daniel said. "We're just fixing what's broken. Turns out a lot of things were broken, and nobody was fixing them." "So we fixed them instead," Katie said. "So we fixed them instead," Daniel agreed. Outside the window, another ship arrived, broadcasting a request for assistance. It was a species Daniel did not recognize, but that did not matter. They needed help. That was enough. The galaxy was changing, one repair at a time, and nothing was going to stop it now. The council chamber had never been this crowded. Every seat was filled, and more beings stood along the walls. Ambassador Richard Cole walked into the chamber with an honor guard of Krath warriors flanking him. It was a statement impossible to miss, and the message was clear. Humanity was not alone. Speaker Velketh's crystalline body flickered with colors that probably meant anger. Ambassador Cole, you stand accused of multiple violations of Council protocols. You have formed unauthorized alliances, strengthened hostile forces, and created what amounts to a private fleet outside Council authority. These are serious charges. Richard stood in the center of the chamber. Calm, despite being surrounded by hundreds of alien species, many of whom looked hostile. We have helped people who needed it. We repaired broken ships. We treated wounded. We fixed translators. If that violates your protocols, then perhaps your protocols are the problem. The chamber erupted in shouting. Dozens of species tried to speak at once, some in agreement, others in outrage. Velketh called for order repeatedly before the noise died down. You destabilize the galactic order, Velketh said coldly. You create loyalties that bypass Council authority. You strengthen species we have deemed dangerous. This cannot be allowed to continue. Before Richard could respond, Commander Karshek stepped forward. The Krath warrior moved with purpose, and his scarred face was set in determination. Speaker Velketh speaks of order, Karshek said, his voice carrying easily through the massive chamber. But what kind of order? An order that lets ships fail while beings die inside? An order that denies medical care to the wounded because of politics? An order that keeps entire species weak through neglect? He turned to face the full assembly. The Krath have been part of this order for generations. We accepted that many feared us. We are warriors, yes. We are predators, yes. But we are also people. We have children who need translators. We have ships that break down. We have wounded who need doctors. And when we asked for help, this council told us to manage alone. Karshek's voice grew stronger. Then humans came. They did not see monsters to fear. They saw broken things to fix. They helped without asking for payment or power. They treated us like people who deserved assistance. This is not destabilization. This is what civilization should mean. Another voice joined him, deep and resonant. Broken Stone stepped forward, and every being in the chamber felt a primal fear response. The Krex was massive and covered in battle scars, a living reminder of violence and war. But his words were measured and clear. The Krex have been enemies of this council for decades. We accepted this because we understood we were different, dangerous in your eyes. But our warriors still get wounded, our ships still break, our people still need help. And every time we asked, we were refused. The council told us we did not deserve assistance because we were threats. Broken Stone's huge hands clenched. Then human doctors saved 20 of my warriors. 3 were dying. The humans worked for 3 days without rest, learning our biology, adapting their tools, refusing to give up. They saved all 20, even the ones I thought were dead. They did this knowing it would anger the council. They did it because it was right. He looked at Richard with clear respect. The Krex pledge loyalty to humans not because of manipulation or strategy. We pledge loyalty because they showed us we are not monsters, that we deserve help like any living being. This is honor. This is worth. One by one, other species stepped forward. A Veltorian science officer spoke about how humans had repaired their research vessel's sensors when it was going to be scrapped. A Hresh colony administrator talked about how human engineers had fixed their life support systems, saving 3,000 colonists. A Quellan merchant described how humans had repaired their damaged ship without charging, when council-approved repair stations had quoted prices they could not afford. Each story was different, but the message was the same. Humans helped when others would not. They fixed broken things without asking what they would get in return. They saw beings who needed assistance and they provided it, regardless of species or politics. The ancient Nethrani, who had spoken at the previous session, pulsed with soft light. I have lived for 12 centuries. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen the council grow from a handful of species to hundreds. And I have watched as we became comfortable in our power and forgot what civilization truly means. The energy being drifted closer to the center of the chamber. We built an order based on control. We kept species separate, weak, dependent on us for permission to help each other. We called this stability. We called this peace. But it was really just convenient for us. Convenient for those with power. The Nethrani's light grew brighter. Humans have reminded us of something fundamental. Civilization is not measured by the strength of its fleets or the complexity of its treaties. It is measured by how we treat those who need help, the weak, the wounded, the broken. By that measure, this council has failed for a very long time. The chamber fell silent. The accusation was clear and damning, and it came from one of the most respected species in the galaxy. I propose, the Nethrani continued, that we do not sanction humanity. Instead, I propose we learn from them. Let us create a new compact, a pledge that helping those in need takes priority over political convenience. Let species assist each other not because of treaties, but because it is right. Let humanity be a founding member, and let us see if we can remember what civilization should mean. The debate that followed lasted 3 full days. Richard was questioned, challenged, and lectured. But he noticed something changing. More and more species were standing up with stories of being denied help, of watching their people suffer because they lacked political influence, of being told their problems were not important enough to address. The humans had not just helped the Krath and Kreks. They had revealed a truth the Council had been hiding for generations, that the Galactic Order was built on neglect, and countless beings had suffered because of it. On the 3rd day, a vote was called. The new compact would be established as an alternative to traditional council authority. Member species pledged to provide assistance to any who needed it, regardless of politics or profit. Membership was voluntary, but once joined, species committed to helping others. When the vote was counted, the result was overwhelming. 247 species voted to join the new compact. Only 38 voted against. The Council's old order had not just been challenged, it had been peacefully overthrown. Speaker Velketh's crystalline body flickered rapidly, a sign of distress. "This session is concluded," it said, its voice tight with suppressed emotion. The ancient power structure had just crumbled, and everyone knew it. Richard left the chamber with Margaret Perry walking beside him. She was smiling in a way he had rarely seen. "Do you realize what just happened?" she asked. "We avoided a war?" Richard guessed. "We changed how the galaxy works," Margaret corrected. "All because some engineers fixed a broken translator and helped people who needed it. Small actions, Ambassador. But they changed everything." 6 months later, Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, looking at a map of their current sector. It was covered with markers, each one representing a ship or station that had requested assistance. The requests came from dozens of species, and they ranged from critical repairs to simple maintenance that had been put off too long. Katie Morrison came onto the bridge, wiping grease from her hands. "The Hilvex ship is ready to go. Their engines are running better than they have in years. They want to know if they can join the repair fleet." Daniel smiled. "Tell them yes. We can always use more hands." The new compact had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a few human repair ships had become a galaxy-wide network of mutual aid. Species helped each other with repairs, medicine, food distribution, disaster response. The old system of asking Council permission for everything was being replaced by direct cooperation between peoples. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species who preferred the old ways, but more and more, the galaxy was choosing to help rather than ignore. to fix rather than discard, to work together rather than remain separate. Olivia Chen approached with a data pad. "Commander, we just got a message from Station Kepler 7. A young Krath named Zixthar is requesting permission to come aboard. He says he wants to train as an engineer." Daniel felt warmth in his chest. "Tell him he's welcome. We could use someone who understands how this all started." Because it had started simply. A young Krath with a broken translator. Humans who knew how to fix things and cared enough to help. Small actions that rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. Dr. Lisa Park sent a report from the medical bay. She was training doctors from 15 different species in techniques for treating various alien biologies. Quick Claw, the Krex medic, was one of her best students, and together they had saved hundreds of lives across the sector. Chris Blake, who still handled communications, shook his head in wonder. "Commander, we're getting requests faster than we can respond. Colonies need water systems repaired, ships need engine work, medical stations need supplies. How are we supposed to keep up?" "We're not," Daniel admitted. "But we don't have to. Every species we help, some of them join the effort. They start helping others. It spreads. That's the point. We're not trying to fix the whole galaxy ourselves. We're teaching the galaxy to fix itself." Captain Linda Shaw came onto the bridge, looking satisfied. "I just got off a call with Earth Command. They're sending 20 more repair ships to join the fleet. They're also setting up training programs to teach engineering and medical skills to anyone who wants to learn regardless of species." She smiled at Daniel. "You know what the Admiral said to me? He said you and your crew accidentally became the most important diplomatic mission in human history, and you did it by just being decent people who helped when they could." Daniel felt uncomfortable with the praise. "We just did what needed doing." "That's exactly why it worked," Linda said. "You didn't help people because you wanted power or recognition. You helped because things were broken and you knew how to fix them. That's authentic. That's real. And that's what the galaxy needed." Katie joined them on the bridge, and she looked out at the stars through the main view screen. "You know what's amazing? We're still just repair crews. We still fix ships and machines, but somehow that changed everything." "Small actions," Daniel said, echoing what Margaret Perry had told Ambassador Cole. "They ripple outward." "Yeah," Katie agreed. "They really do." In the cargo bay below, a young Krath named Zixthar stepped onto the Wanderer for the first time. He carried the translator his father had owned, the one the humans had fixed for him over a year ago. It still worked perfectly, and he kept it as a reminder of the day his life changed. A reminder that broken things deserve to be fixed, that people deserve help, that small acts of kindness can change the galaxy. He was here to learn how to be an engineer, not just to fix machines, but to carry forward what the humans had taught him, how to see problems as opportunities, how to help without expecting reward, how to build bridges between species instead of walls. It was a lesson the whole galaxy was learning now, one repaired ship at a time, one healed wound at a time, one fixed system at a time. The new compact was not just a political agreement. It was a way of thinking, a choice to help rather than ignore, to fix rather than discard, to see potential friends instead of threats. And it had all started with something simple. A broken translator, humans who cared enough to fix it, and a young Krath who told everyone what they had done. The galaxy had learned that humans fix broken things. And then the galaxy had learned to fix things together. It was the beginning of something new. Something better, something built not on fear or control, but on the simple recognition that we are all in this together, and when someone needs help, we help them. Because that is what civilization should mean. Because broken things deserve to be fixed. Because we are all stronger when we help each other. The Wanderer's engines hummed as they prepared to move to their next destination. There were more ships to repair, more people to help, more broken things to fix, and Daniel Hayes, who just wanted to fix things and help people, smiled as his ship jumped to light speed. The work was never done, but that was okay. They would keep fixing things one at a time until the galaxy was whole.